And I can speak for all of us when I say that we are greatly honored to have as our guest Gloria Steinem.
All right, let us clear space at least so Ms. Steinem can walk.
Well, my first question is that, you've become such an important and influential person in our nation's history and like the lives of, both men and women, feminists and non-feminists. And I just want to know, what started all of this? What influenced you and inspired you to, make the impact that you did?
One day somebody will be asking you this question, all of you, and you won't know what to say.
Ms. Steinem is a feminist, a journalist, an author, and one of this country's leading social and political activists.
I was part of an accidental generation. We didn't look forward and plan because we imagined, or we were told, that we would perhaps work for a year or two, but then we would have children, marry, have children, and our husbands' careers and our children's needs would dictate the rest of our lives. It was a series of saying no to things, saying, no, I don't want to get married just now. Later, I'll do that later. I know I'm supposed to. And that lasted a long time until the women's movement came along in my life and let me know that not everyone had to live the same way.
As a historian, I'm a historian. I think it's rare to meet somebody who we teach about in our classes, but also somebody who I really think that I look at my 14-year-old daughter and I think she grows up in a different world because of the work that you have done. So welcome, and I've told students...
Do you think those recent attacks on abortion rights kind of signal a larger cultural war to try to stigmatize reproductive rights in general by the GOP?
Sure. Reagan was pro-choice. Eisenhower was pro-choice. Nixon supported the Equal Rights Amendment. They couldn't be Republicans anymore. So you can imagine that during the last presidential campaign, it was very disheartening to see the degree to which mostly the media opposed sex and race, kept trying to ask, is one more serious than the other? Which are Americans ready for? A white woman or a black man? I mean, it was quite sinister. Actually, I was traveling the whole time, and I found that in audiences like these, people were just excited to have two new faces. If you consider that before then, we had eliminated, obviously, all women, all together, all men of color, all people without the proper degrees, all people who weren't Christians. We'd been picking our national leadership from 6% of the population. No wonder we are in such deep shit, that we are... The good news is that the public opinion polls are very different, as you've noticed. It's very clear that 60-some% of Americans think that it should be a woman in her position who makes this decision, not the government. I noticed that there's a new show called Bridalplasty. Have you seen this? The $80 billion a year wedding industrial complex has started this show in which every week each winning contestant gets one, I'm quoting, gets one piece of body surgery done 1 week at a time, and the winner gets an extensive overall surgery, which is then only revealed to her husband on the day of the wedding. Could I make that up?
There's kind of a generational prescription that the young people of today are very apathetic and they don't care about current events or politics, but I've found in my research that a lot of people are busy, they have to work, and they don't necessarily privilege activist causes when defining time commitments. One
thing is, I think that young women especially are being measured by the standard, by the sort of anthropological pattern of men's lives rather than women's lives. And it is true in a general way, certainly not of everybody, but that women get more activist as we get older.
And I guess something that I have seen on campus, and I think this is kind of nationwide, is not a lot of direct action.
Otherwise, you kind of feel like you're putting everything in your head, you're learning all of this, and it becomes frustrating because it's all about learning and not necessarily about acting. So, you know, I don't know what the subjects of direct action would be. Only you know that. I mean, but no matter what it is, you know, if it's something as simple as more lights in the parking lot, or particular courses that still have some stereotype problems. If we see that the means are the ends, it will help us to activate ourselves every day and to use the kinds of, I mean, for instance, what do we want at the end of the revolution? Well, I would say we want community, we want joy, we want humor, we want freedom of speech, right? We want music, we want poetry, we want sex. Okay, what does that mean? It means every day, along the way, as much as possible, we need to have community and joy and freedom of speech and poetry and music and sex and, you know, I mean, because that's how we'll get there. You don't get something by putting it off. I